Hi, this is Roger Moore, and you're listening to James Bond Radio.
Hello, and welcome to episode number 155 of James Bond Radio. This is the fourth part of our Tomorrow Never Dies review. It is the 90-second reviews of Tomorrow Never Dies, where our listeners get to phone in and voice their opinion on Bond number 18, Tomorrow Never Dies. I'm doing my super speedy voice just because I'm so excited to talk to Chris. How you doing, Chris?
Hello, Chris. I'm Chris. This is Chris. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited too because we're going to be talking about Tomorrow Never Dies. Part not 1, 2, 3 because we've already done this. This is part 4, but it's actually the listener 90-second review episode.
You know what? Any new listeners who are new to the show and have just discovered JBR and are like, oh, let's listen to their latest episode, are probably tuning out in their millions by now. But there we go.
I think so. Yeah, there we go.
Welcome to episode number 155. Yes. Are you excited? It's time for the JBR family to have a word.
Yes, and I do. And like we always say, we do like these episodes because it's good to hear everyone's sort of opinions. We're good to hear the voice of people far and wide about whether they. I mean, we if people adore it or if they absolutely hate it, or if there's a character they don't like, or a scene they can't stand, or a moment that they absolutely adore. We want to hear all those little things, don't we? Definitely.
Yeah. A prime example, I think, for me. As much as we love him, Stammbar, quit shouting in my ear, yeah. Like, I can imagine that dude pissing some people off. And I've got a prediction
divides
to make.
opinion. Yeah, divides a lot of opinion.
I've got a prediction to make. My prediction is this. Yeah. If you are one of these dyed-in-the-wall Timmy lovers, right?
Yeah, which there are.
Living Daylights is your favourite film, or it might even be License to Kill, but you fucking love
Probably
Timmy.
License to Kill for a lot of them, actually.
Absolutely. Yeah. But you fucking love Timmy. My prediction is you're not that much of a Brosnan fan. I feel like those are the polar opposite people there at the opposite ends of the scale. I feel like if you love Timmy, you're not that big a fan of the Bros.
And do you think that is because those are people of sort of certain generations, and because obviously Tim and Bros were so close together, obviously back in the day you had Sean and Rog, obviously George a bit in between slightly, and so they were the comparisons, and they still are being they are the go-to comparison of Bond, Sean and Roger. But because of people in the modern sort of world and contemporary, with the closest comparisons aside from Daniel now was obviously Timmy and Pierce, and the huge differences. So do you think that's a reason why there's such sort of a divide amongst those in one camp or the other?
Well, I suppose it's always the way, isn't it, that when the new Bond comes along, there's the natural comparison to the last one. So I would say nowadays, the reason why the Brosnan gets the bad sort of the bashing that he does these days is because he's, he was the last dude, and Daniel comes along. Nobody was expecting Casino Royale to be as absolutely once in a lifetime amazing as it was. By that stage of the game, Bond 20 odd, whatever number it was, it's kind of like, you've probably made all your best Bond films by that point. Do you know what I mean? Once you've cranked out over 20 of them, and then it comes out, blows everything out of the water, and you're like, shit, I think that might actually be the best one ever. That was so unexpected for most people, definitely me. And when that happens, and when you completely change things around and you do come up with a movie like that, the natural thing to go is look at the last dude, and especially with the last film that Brosnan made as well, you're like, oh, fuck it now, like this is a bit rough. You know what I mean? That is the natural thing that a lot of people do, and it's totally understandable. And then I guess going back a generation, when it's Pierce taken over from Tim, I would say you had equal parts people going, oh, thank God, GoldenEye is amazing, this is exactly what we wanted. Equal parts the other way going, for fuck's sake, I wanted more License to Kill, or I wanted more Living Daylights. So it is a polarizing thing, I suppose, when you have equally. I think you've got, talking about George being sandwiched between Sean and Roger, I think you've got these days, you've got Pierce sandwiched between Tim and Daniel, who are very similar takes on Bond, weren't they, at the end of the day? Much darker, completely. Much more gritty. And then you've got, Brosnan in the middle being a lot more lighthearted, wisecracking ladies' man Bond, which the other two aren't really. You know what I mean? It is. There's the two ends of the spectrum again, I think.
Yeah. Which begs the question, post Daniel, Bond 26, what sort of a Bond are we going to get? And if it's one that rocks the world, is Daniel going to be looked on less favourably if, for instance, obviously there are a few people who weren't too keen on Spectre. depends on how Bond 25 comes out. It could be a world beater. It could be another Casino Royale or another Skyfall in some people's eyes, and be amazing, and then cement it. If you've got if your tenure as Bond is bookended by banging films, and the first and the last are top notch, it's kind of hard to say anything bad about you, because I don't know if that's ever happened, because Diamonds was obviously a drop down. I think for a lot of people, A View to a Kill was, and obviously with Pierce, Die Another Day. So it all rests on Bond 25 as to how Daniel's tenure will be looked at in the future, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting, because we like you say, we've never had a closing Bond film that's been a world-beating belter. So if it follows the pattern of previous Bonds, then Bond 25 might not be the greatest film in the world.
I hope it is. So.
But then maybe that's part of the pattern, Chris. Maybe you need to have that last film to be a bit rough around the edges, so your next one can be the amazing one. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, that would be rough. Imagine that. If say Daniel's Bond 25 is worldwide critically acclaimed and adored by all fans, and then the new guy comes in and it's like, fuck.
Well, that's it.
You know what I mean?
Ultimately, what you need is, with your departing Bond, you kind of need people to be like, yeah, I enjoyed it, but it's time to move on now. That's what you need, isn't it? Because then it makes way for the next dude. You know, and I mean, none more so than A View to a Kill, I think, because it's you look at that film and obviously Roger's knocking on, you know what I mean? And it's time to get some fresh blood in there, you know, time to get Timmy on board. So imagine if it outdoes Skyfall, right? Imagine if it really racks up the numbers. And everyone's like, whoa, this is the best Bond ever. This is the most successful Bond ever. What do you do from there, right? What do you do?
Well,
because
exactly.
You know Barbara would be on the phone, Daniel, we need to have a little chat. I know you wanted to go after this one. Yeah. You know that's going to happen, right?
Yeah, well, it would have to.
But then equal parts, would you want to go out on a high note like that? And be
I think Daniel would want to go out on a high, because he, you know, as an actor, you want to strive to make quality films and hopefully enjoy yourself while you're doing it. And I think Spectre received enough flack that he wouldn't want to end on that. I think he's quite proud, not in a conceited way, but of his work and his contribution. And I think ultimately he would want to go out on a high. So I think if Bond 25 is a world beater, even though Barbara will be like, oh, Dan, come on, let's double it. You can be, exec producer and all this. I think he would still want to go out, unless they can convince him that they can make another world beater. You know
what they did with Connery? It's like, well, if you make this one, we'll let you make any film you like, Daniel. We'll bankroll anyone. And then he's like, oh, fucking hell. All right.
Then it gets tricky, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And then you come back and you make your shitty Bond 26. And then it's time. But it is interesting, because there is more to it, isn't there? When you think of the natural flow of things with every Bond actor beforehand. I do think Pierce deserved one more shot, and I feel like Pierce deserved his For Your Eyes Only after Die Another Day, and I would have loved to have seen it. But when every Bond has left, well, I say every Bond, every long-serving Bond, when they've finished, it's been time for them. It's been time for the freshen up, hasn't it? You know?
Yes. Yeah.
And their ending films haven't been the best. So it's kind of like, when you bring that fresh juice in, it is like, oh yeah, this is exciting. This is what we want. And the whole pattern has always been, take it back to Fleming and do that. Yeah. So it does depend. Like, if it is a world beater, then the next dude is going to have his work cut out for him. And do you know what my prediction is, right?
Yeah.
I think realistically, I would love for it to be a world beater. I would love for it to outsell Skyfall. My prediction is we get another film that performs at the box office along the same lines of Spectre. So it's still massively successful, right? It's still massively, but it doesn't do Skyfall numbers. This is my kind of realistic projection. And Daniel bows out, right?
Yeah.
Then there's the question of 25 films, nice round number. We do have the little feelings, rumblings that maybe there might be a George Lucas selling Lucasfilm thing on the cards at some point. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe we're totally barking up the wrong tree. So there's a decision, a left or a right turn. Do they be like, okay, we're drawing a line under it at 25. Let's sell it to Disney and move on, right? Regardless, whether they do that or they don't do that, it's time to cast the next Bond, Bond number 7, Bond 26. My prediction is that A, there's another big break, and B, the next dude takes a little bit of time to find his feet. I don't think after a Daniel, you come out with another world beating super classic straight out of the gate, because Daniel's been so popular. I feel like the next dude is going to take 2 or 3 films to really get going, I think.
But do you think they will take a different tack with the character of Bond? So obviously Daniel has been the dark, the gritty, the sort of very physical. Do you think in order to sort of stay away from that and maybe reinvent it a bit, the next character, the next actor to portray Bond will be doing different sort of, maybe bringing the humor in a bit more, maybe bringing the shagger in a bit more, bringing the more lightheartedness.
Yeah.
You
have to. I think, I mean, when you consider, they did say with George, didn't they? When they're saying, "What are you looking for?" and back in the day, they were like, "We're looking for another Sean Connery," is what we're doing, and say what you will about George's acting experience and acting ability and all the rest of it. He was very much cut from a similar cloth as like a man's man, kind of rampant shagger kind of dude, sexy geezer. There was that. Roger comes along, very different, isn't it? It's a very different type of cool. It's not that animal killer instinct Bond. It's super smooth, super comic, light-hearted Bond. And again, next dude, Timothy, let's go totally the other direction. Next dude, Pierce, totally the other direction. Next dude, Daniel, totally the other direction.
Yeah.
So the pattern,
it's got to be,
it's got to be a lighter-hearted Bond, which worries me because you look at Batman, for example. You have Christian Bale, everybody loves Christian Bale as Batman. I'm Batman, even with the voice. That was an amazing trilogy of Batman films, and then you've got the Batfleck coming in. I don't think anybody really likes the Batfleck, do they? And
I've never watched it.
Yeah, so it's that kind of thing where is that going to be what we're going to look forward to with our next Bond? Is like just a bit of a misfire, couple of films, and then the reboot happens. And I feel like if Bond 25 is another world-beating classic like Skyfall was in terms of box office and popularity, like shit, man, that is going to be the challenge,
Yeah, it'll be something completely new for a Bond actor to step into shoes if the previous film is a world beater, because it really hasn't happened, has it, in terms of worldwide popularity and box office. So interesting. We'll have to obviously see. That's further down the line, but today we're obviously going to be listening to our listener reviews of Tomorrow Never Dies, the second Brosnan film. So before we do that, what should we do? Should we play a little bit of theme tune, talk about social media? What do you
let's do some social media. Come and follow us on the social media, Facebook, Twitter, the rest of it. Job done. Lovely. Instagram.
Wicked.
Yeah, that was the other one. I knew I was missing one. Lovely. We've got a listener trivia question, haven't we?
We do. And the listener trivia question today is from Mr. Chris Thorne. Should we have a listen?
Let's do it.
Hi there, Tom and Chris. This is Chris Thorne from Station E in Essex. I just sat here watching Skyfall, and I thought I'd send in a little fan choice question that you guys do. So my question is this: in the interrogation room sequence where Dr. Hall is, quizzing Bond on the word association game, to what does Bond answer to the following words? Sunlight and moon. So that's again when Bond is being asked for the first word that pops into his head in the word association game. To what does Bond answer when he is given the words sunlight and moon? I'll message back in just a moment with the answers. Thanks, guys. Catch you later.
Oh, that's a good one.
There we go. Yeah.
I haven't seen Skyfall.
I think I've got. You haven't.
Never.
You have never seen it.
I missed
How
that
am I
one.
going to get this?
I haven't seen it for a while, is what I was about to say.
Yeah.
So that's a good one. I remember gun, shot,
and heart target and dominatrix and all that. Yeah, we'll have to have a think. I think I've got the answer to one of them, so I should be able to get the other one. But, yeah. Good question, though, Chris. Nice one.
That's probably the ones I just don't know, because they say agent and he says provocateur, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And then something else and he says provocatrix, doesn't he? Is that what he says?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But I can't remember sunlight and dark. Interesting. All right,
Yeah,
nice one,
okay.
Chris. Good stuff. Good to hear from you, buddy. All right, then, it's time to turn it over to the JBR family and hear what they have to say with their 90-second reviews of Tomorrow Never Dies.
Who are you?
My name's Bond. James Bond.
Bond.
James.
Bond, what do you think you're doing?
Keeping the British hand up, sir.
Welcome to James Bond Radio. News, reviews, and discussion of all things 007.
Pussy. As you can see, I have no problem with female authority.
Oh, pipe down, 007.
You expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Hi, Tom and Chris. This is JBR Agent Frank McNeely from Tacoma, Washington, calling in my 90-second review of Tomorrow Never Dies. There are things I like about this movie and things I don't like about this movie. So, what I like, Pierce Brosnan is better as James Bond in this film than GoldenEye. He's getting more comfortable and he starts to look, even more cooler and even more suave than GoldenEye. David Arnold's score is definitely one of my favorites, especially Backseat Driver. I run to that track quite often. Things I don't like about the movie, I don't like the backstory of Paris Carver and Bond. It doesn't really make sense, and it's not very Bondian. Michelle Yeoh was definitely underutilized. It's nice that she had a fight scene, but at the same time, I feel like there wasn't really much else going for her. And at the very end, when Bond and Wayland get together, I didn't really find that believable. I would have been more satisfied if they had never gotten romantic at the end. Something that's interesting about this movie, I noticed they corrected several things that GoldenEye kind of did wrong, which GoldenEye has very few flaws. Number one, the Chinese pilot near the beginning speaking Chinese when he's on the radio. If you'll remember in GoldenEye, there was a Russian pilot speaking English, so they fixed that. And then also, the music is way better for this one than GoldenEye. Hope you guys are doing great. Can't wait until the world's not enough. Bye.
So, Tomorrow Never Dies. Oh, so much to say on this film, but I've only got 90 seconds, so here goes. I love the pre-title sequence. I think it's one of the best in the series. I think the White Knight track that accompanies it is absolutely superb. I think Brosnan as Bond has never looked better. I think as for the main title sequence and the song itself, they're both a bit, forgettable for me. But I think overall, it's very colourful, it's very watchable, it's a very shiny affair. I think Brosnan looks ace. In my opinion, it's David Arnold's best soundtrack of the entire series. I think Desmond Llewellyn's performance is the best since License to Kill. Oh, and K.D. Lang's Surrender. Why on earth was that not at the beginning of the film? Negatives for me, maybe it's a little bit light, maybe it's a little bit of a greatest hits package. It feels possibly a little bit rushed, although we know it was, given the pre-production problems. Overall, though, it's a fun frolic of a Bond ride. I think it's Brosnan's second best. Possibly we needed a bigger set piece at the end, as Tom mentioned in the main review, and I think, quite frankly, Bond wielding double machine guns, it looks un-Bond-like. And that's about it. The name's Dobson, Brian Dobson. Speak to you soon. Bye.
This is Simon with my 90-second Tomorrow Never Dies review. I really enjoyed Tomorrow Never Dies. It's one of my most watched Bond films, actually. I saw it the most at the cinema, and it's generally the one I go to on Blu-ray when I want to just kick back and watch something easy, has lots of action, feels very Bondian, and isn't afraid and ashamed of the fact that it's a Bond film. I think a lot of credit goes to Spottiswoode in that regard, to pull the story and the tone together during Nightmare of a Shoot. I like his directorial little touches, like the goon who keeps touching the electrified BMW door when they're trying to break into Bond's car. Brosnan's on really top form. I actually like the fact that he's put on some weight since GoldenEye, so he looks a bit more solid. He's really filled into the role and frankly carries the whole thing much more this time, because the characters aren't as strong as they are in GoldenEye. Pre-title scene is one of my favourite. What's Bond doing? His job! And Brosnan rolling under the plane, leg sweeping a goon, David Arnold's music blaring. Oh, I love it. Great. It's the sort of crowd-pleasing Bond, that cinematic Bond, that's really saving the day, and which is kind of lacking in the Craig films for me. Dr. Kaufman is a highlight, just on the right side of silliness, but also kind of creepy. Jonathan Pryce is pretty hammy, but at least he's giving it some energy. Shame the chemistry between Bond and Michelle Yeoh and Terry Hatcher isn't totally there for me. And I can't deny I tune out a little bit when it gets to the stealth boat at the end. But overall, it's a fun, unpretentious Bond film, which is probably more of an action-adventure than spy thriller. Sometimes that's just what I'm in the mood for.
Hi, Tom and Chris and everyone on the JBR family. This is Agent Marlene from Station in Munich calling with my Tomorrow Never Dies review. I see why Tomorrow Never Dies is not up there with the best movies in the series, but when you go back and watch it again, there are actually so many great aspects about it. Carver, for instance, he's a great villain. He has absolutely great villain potential. His plan to start World War III is pretty much up there in the realm of Hugo Drax's plan to destroy the world. So James Bond is saving the world in this movie, which is good. The Bond girl, Wai Lin, is a fantastic character, very strong. She can handle herself. It's a bit unfortunate that there is little chemistry between Michelle and Pierce, but the character is definitely great. The car chase, I always enjoyed a lot. It's so much fun to watch. Bond driving from the back seat, using his phone, awesome. And it's funny that the bad guys drive Mercedes cars. It's a small nod to the rivalry between BMW and Mercedes, which is funny. The score is great. The Bond theme gets used a lot, which we all appreciate. The only thing that's really a bit unfortunate is that they didn't get Monica Bellucci to play Paris Carver. I never knew that she was being considered. And maybe Pierce and Monica would have made the history between the two characters more believable, so it's a bit unfortunate that they didn't get her to play. Time's running out. Solid movie, absolutely worthy follow-up to GoldenEye.
Good morning, my golden retrievers. This is a 90-second review of Tomorrow Never Dies. Tomorrow Never Dies, I think, is one of the best films in the series. Brosnan looks absolutely badass in this movie. He wears the naval uniform, the tuxedo, the black overalls at the end, which I freaking love, and then the hotel scene, which is so reminiscent of Dr. No. He looks so cool. It's just fantastic. The plot, I think it's super relevant. It's scripted really tightly. It moves well. I think it's aged well. The pre-title sequence, I think, was great action. Love it. The titles were great. The casting, I think, was brilliant in this film. I loved Carver. I loved Dr. Kaufman, which was such a great addition. Stamper was really good. He just needed that extra scene, I think, for the torture scene, which would have been fantastic to see. I don't know if they could have got it past the censors in the 90s, which is maybe why they didn't have something like that written. The action, I think, is just so good. The car chase, all the stuff at the end, I love it. I don't think it gets too Rambo-ish for me. The dialogue is really spot on, and the score is so good. David Arnold absolutely kills it. This might be the best score in the whole franchise. I think it's super underrated. It doesn't give the credit it deserves. I think it's probably more rewatchable than any of the recent films. I think GoldenEye is probably a better film overall, but Tomorrow Never Dies, I never get tired of watching it, and it's just one of those you can just put on and enjoy time after time after time. And I think, what the producers did with this one is they just listened to James Bond and they gave the people what they wanted.
Hello all, my name's Darren Bittle, a recent new listener to JBR, and this is my first 90-second review. Given the production problems that plagued Tomorrow Never Dies, to have a finished product is an achievement in itself. However, the overall conclusions is that Bond 18 is rather average. The opening 30 minutes of the film is the strongest section by some way. It's when the film reaches the Hamburg Media Centre that things begin to slide. This particular section alone shows the problems of the film regarding the strength of character. None of them are fully developed. There should have been more backstory implemented regarding Elliot Carver to compensate for his at times mad professor-style portrayal, which is a shame given the acting kudos Jonathan Pryce has. What is even more disappointing was the effectiveness of his demise, which for me is executed in the same way as an inflated Kananga. The relationship, if it can be called that, between Bond and Paris is so awkwardly portrayed with no time of development during the picture. I don't think biting was being done there. I think it was more of a grimace. Any emotion we're supposed to feel when Bond discovers Paris' demise is immediately diminished when party piece Dr. Kaufman arrives. From then on in, the script is somewhat laden with pantomime verbal joshing between characters, a flaw that is spread throughout the majority of Brosnan's tenure as Bond. The action set pieces are effective, if not really having any kind of edge. Brosnan does look at his most Bondian in this picture, despite the amount of machine guns he fires at any one time. To sum it up, as Roger Moore once said, there's no sense in going off half-cocked. and Tomorrow Never Dies proves that.
Hi, Tom and Chris. Mike Heinrich calling in from Station MN, Minnesota, in the middle of the polar vortex. Currently, the temp here is minus 35 degrees C, minus 50 degrees C with wind chill. Luckily, I had the lovely Professor Inga Bergstrom from the Oxford scene of Tomorrow Never Dies to keep me warm. Full disclosure, Brosnan's my favorite Bond. I think he's a perfect blend of Connery's hardness and lethality and Roger's wit and cheesy one-liners. The opening act is a must-see. It's my favorite pre-titles in any Bond film. White Knight is an absolute belter, and as a complete package, I'd say Tomorrow Never Dies has the best soundtrack of any Bond. I like the meeting between Bond, Carver, Wei Lin, and Paris. I love how tense, awkward, and suspenseful it is. I think Michelle Yeoh is a great actress, however, I think the character of Wei Lin was overall forgettable. Same with Paris, unfortunately, but I love that shot of her standing bareback in Bond's room. Brosnan looks sharp in the navy suit and light blue shirt he wears in the paper plant scene. I copy that look frequently. I love the car chase and the accompanying backseat driver track. When I first got my driver's license, I burned that track onto a CD and listened to it on repeat while I drove. I love the grin Bond gives the camera when he reinflates the tires after driving over the spikes. The actual BMW model was disappointing, though. Lastly, the guns. I actually like when Brosnan carries a P99. I prefer the way it looks to the PPK, and I own one myself. I actually love all the times Brosnan sprays machine guns in the films without aiming. Final thoughts? I love all the Brosnan films. A strong opening, but it does lose ground every second it continues on. Keep up the good work. I'll be visiting London for the first time ever in March. I hope to see some of the JBR family at the Cue the Music show in the West End. Cheers, guys.
Hi, this is Dalton Fisher from Phoenix. Tomorrow Never Dies is my first exposure to anything James Bond at all, which was the video game for the PlayStation 1, which actually had scenes from the movie put directly into the game. I just thought James Bond was the coolest thing in the world when I was a kid. I was so into James Bond, but I didn't really know about the movies that much. I thought it was just this game. And then I saw the movies, and I got really into them, obviously. So I really have a soft spot for Tomorrow Never Dies. It's really American. I can see it's very action focused, but that makes it even cooler for kids. You said it's a great one to get kids into James Bond, and totally. There's even lines that just basically explain the plot to you, like when he's about to halo jump. He explains why he's halo jumping, which I don't like as an adult, but it's great for kids. I love the party in Hamburg. It looks like a 90s version of the future, which is really cool to me. I even like the car. I think the car's, it's sort of not like a sports car, but it's a nice car. I mean, it's just my nostalgia talking. There are definitely a few missed opportunities. I wish Henry Gupta would throw cards. But I gotta say, I think this is the last Bond movie where Bond just has a mission, he goes and does the mission, and that's it. And I kind of would like to have that back at some point. I mean, Casino Royale, he does a mission, but he does a few more. He didn't go rogue in this one. He just does the job and nothing else. And I really like that. Pierce Brosnan looks great, and thanks.
Hello, James Bond Radio. Tom, Chris, JW, the lovely listeners, of course. This is Edgar Chaput, one of the hosts of the James Bond Complex podcast, always in Montreal, Canada, station MC, and here is my 90-second listener review for Tomorrow Never Dies. This is a really interesting one. It's not a perfect film. I think the climax is a dud, not very exciting, doesn't look very nice, the set is not very interesting. Even for a Bond film, there's certain logical aspects to it that I don't think quite connect, they don't quite click. However, that being said, I think the positive overwhelms the negative. Wei Lin is one of my favorite Bond girls. The score is just sublime, is the only word that comes to mind. I think it features one of the better collection of set pieces in the franchise. The garage chase, the motorcycle chase, the pre-title sequence, and Pierce Brosnan. Oh, my goodness. If he was great in GoldenEye, he's basically perfect, I find, both as far as acting and his looks. I think he fits the bill, or he fits the role like a glove. Just absolutely perfect. So, good movie, pretty good overall. As always, I love James Bond Radio, and keep up the great work. Bye!
Hi, Terry Adam here, Station Slough, Gateway to the West. Apart from Russia Love and Jules Lazenby, the second film of each tenure has always had that touch of the second album syndrome. Sir Rogers, The Man with the Golden Gun, is a lovely guilty pleasure, but never really surpassed the cracking first album that was Live and Let Die. Tim's License to Kill was a bit too much of a change in attitude and hairstyles to eclipse The Living Daylights, and Quantum of Solace was rushed out far too quick to be up with a chance against the double platinum selling Casino Royale. I feel the same could be said about Pierce's second outing. Tomorrow Never Dies was good, but it was no with the Beatles. I agree with most of what you guys have already said. A great opening, some great set pieces, Pierce looking equally great, especially in the Carver reception scene. But overall, it was a film that was lacking in that special something that makes a great Bond film a brilliant Bond film. I felt that Carver was one of the weakest Bond villains of the series, which is a shame as Jonathan Pryce is an excellent actor, but appeared uneasy in the role, especially when delivering martial art moves. Wei Lin is just another secret agent trying to muscle in on Bond's territory, but without the chemistry that Bond and Triple X shared. Likewise with Paris, one of the least impactful sacrificial lands of the franchise, and Stamper was just Necros's least efficient brother. Saying that, it had some great Bond moments and is in my top 24 Bond films. But when you spoke of the production problems, you came up with the perfect word to describe Bronson's second album, Undercooked. It looked delicious, it whetted the appetite, but could have done with a couple more minutes on Gasmark 007.
Hello everybody, this is Agent Gary Bootle with my review of Tomorrow Never Dies. I think it's a great film and I really enjoy it. It's not the best Bond film, but it's certainly not the worst. It stood up really well against the competition back in 1997, but it's definitely an action film of its period. It has a great opening sequence, and from the outset until the end, Arnold's score is top end. The first reel is really enjoyable. Loverman Bond in Oxford and Aston Martin and witty dialogue, brushing up on a little Danish, and them not thinking with the balls, all great lines. And there's lots of Bond theme woven into the score. I'm not overly impressed with the title song. They should have gone with The Surrender, which is much better. I think the film progresses at a good pace, but there are quite a few plot holes that you just have to go along with. The lack of a finished script definitely hindered the film, and the chemistry between Brosnan and the Bond girls is somewhat lacking, and Jonathan Pryce's Elliot Carver could have been better, and the production design lacks a bit of the Peter Lamont touch, but notwithstanding, I enjoy this film and back then, and I still enjoy it now. The standout element, without a doubt, though, is Brosnan, as he was at his height as Bond at this time, comfortable in the role and looking absolutely rad. But we should all remember that this was Bond 18, and without a successful Bond 18, we wouldn't have a Bond 19, and hence we won't be looking forward to Bond 25. So in my view, this is a solid entry in the Bond canon.
Hey guys, this is Jose from here in the States in Texas. I recently started listening to your podcast a couple weeks ago, and I'm loving all the content you guys are putting out. I recently rewatched Tomorrow Never Dies a couple days ago, and I must say that, yeah, if you have friends that have never seen a Bond film before, this would be a good encapsulation of what to expect, because the movie does a great job of checking off the list of the iconic tropes that you would see in a Bond film, and Brosnan does a great job of balancing what made Roger's performance so charismatic and Connery's so iconic as well. But I just wish the movie had a little bit more of that broodiness that Brosnan brought on GoldenEye. And because the movie does feel like it's just checking off boxes, it does feel a bit superficial to me at times. You know, it's almost like Bond is like a walking action figure who gets from one scenario to another. But I still had fun watching the movie. And I understand that there's that campiness to it that is still in tradition to with the Bond franchises at times. And David Arnold's music complements the movie so well that you can't mark it down for that. I do like the industrial modern take that the movie decided to go with. Elliot Carver was a pretty good Bond villain. Just doesn't compare to Trevelyan, I think. But overall, it's still a good Bond film, and I really enjoyed it.
Hi guys, Keith calling from JBR Melbourne with my Tomorrow Never Dies review. I used to be quite fond of Tomorrow Never Dies when I was younger. I liked all the pieces, excluding Die Another Day. But now I have to say that I'm not a massive Tomorrow Never Dies fan. I'd probably put it at number 23 out of all of Bond films, just above Die Another Day. I think it's probably the second worst Bond film for a few reasons. I just think it falls very flat for me. I don't like the aesthetic of the film with the stealth boat sets and such. I think Elliot Carver is a weak villain, even though Jonathan Pryce is a great actor, but I just think he's very average. I think the Bond girls are very boring, uninteresting. Stamper is not great. I find, as you guys mentioned in your podcast, a lot of the action scenes and a lot of the general sort of feel of the film is pretty generic 90s action. I do think Pierce is great I do love the scenes in Hamburg. The car chase in the car park's fantastic, and all that stuff with him sneaking around the paper mill is classic Bond. And the score's great, of course, but I have to say I'm not a big fan, and it's probably this film and Die Another Day I find to be the two weakest entries in the series. But it's still good fun.
Hi, Tom and Chris. Steve Spring from Northampton, leaving my 90-second review for Tomorrow Never Dies. For a while, this was always a bit of an average Bond film for me and lacked anything special, but recently it's really jumped up in my estimation. I think learning more about the production behind the scenes always adds value to a film, and it's actually amazing without a finished script they managed to make a half-decent film at all. Things I really enjoy are the score by David Arnold is one of the best. Brosnan is still in his prime. Dr. Kaufman, it has a great car chase scene, and the film has a classic Roger Moore feel about it. Things that annoy me, the title song, the lack of chemistry between Brosnan and both leading ladies, how American it feels in places, and too many machine guns for a Bond film. Things that could have made this a top film for me, Surrender as the title song works much better. It's a better song and works well with the score. Anthony Hopkins as the villain would have taken it up a level. I actually quite like Jonathan Pryce's over-the-top performance now. And also Monica Bellucci, instead of the awful Terry Hatcher, would have been much better, as there were rumours of her in the running for that role. I also much prefer the original title of Tomorrow Never Lies. It's a cool title and feels less generic than the another film with Die in the title anyway. Overall, it's Brosnan's second film and his second best. It's a near miss for a top 10, but it's still a very entertaining entry in the Bond series.
Hi, Chris. Hi, Tom. This is Brett Vanderberg from Hamburg with my Tomorrow Never Dies review. You recently had a caller suggest that Pierce Brosnan is the only Bond who could have played Bond in any of the movies, and I think he is right. But unfortunately, I think that's also a problem. If your Bond could be Bond in Moonraker or License to Kill, you're kind of all over the map, and maybe there's not that much really there. And I think we see that a lot in this movie in terms of like tone. You have, for example, this very somber, excellent scene where he's in the hotel room waiting for Carver's killer, followed by a very comic scene with Dr. Kaufman, followed by a very serious, somber scene where he brutally kills Dr. Kaufman and sniffs Paris's body, followed by another comic scene with the remote control car in the garage. These scenes are all great, but back to back, they just like I don't know who this guy is that I'm watching. It's kind of all over the map, and we see this kind of in this era. But I should say, with the time I have left, that I think his performance here is actually better than in Goldeneye. I think 90% of the time he's doing what he should be, and maybe he's ill-served by the script. And I just find it to be entertaining, but still, it's not amazing.
Hello, JBR. This is Agent Ralph Lewandowski calling in from the Atlantic Hotel in Hamburg, Germany. Not really. I love Tomorrow Never Dies. It's my favorite Brosnan film, and I used to watch this one the most as a child, and to this day it has a very special place in my heart. And I can't stand it when people criticize it, because to me it just means a lot emotionally. I think that one of the main points of criticism that I hear is that Elliot Carver is a very weak villain, but I think that he's very contemporary, and with today's possibilities the internet offers, he would be very excited. And that his entire media-centered obsession could as well feature in a present-day Bond film. Yes, he is comical, but he's also deranged in a way that he's so self-centered and profit-oriented that he would start a possibly nuclear war, World War III, only in order to get exclusive broadcasting rights in China. And for some reason, I always loved this disproportionality in his scheme. I agree that the Bond girls in this film, with the exception of the Danish teacher, lack chemistry with Pierce, but there are other elements that make up for this, in my view. The MI6 scenes, the Q scene, gadget moments, Dr. Kaufman, the brilliant soundtrack, and Pierce looks the best of all his films in this one. I love it, I love it, I love it, I love it, I love it.
Hi, this is Matt Robenheimer with my thoughts on Tomorrow Never Dies. This has never been a top-ranking Bond film for me, but it has grown on me a bit over the years, and there are a number of things that I do really like about it. One of those is the pre-title sequence. I think it's a great action scene. It's got great music, and it does stand up, I think, with some of the best pre-title sequences in the series. And having mentioned the music, I say overall the score is really, really good. One of my favorite scores in the series, in fact. In general, the first half of the movie is pretty good. I like the setup of the plot. And Elliot Carver is actually a villain that I think I like more than most people do. Even in his sillier, over-the-top moments, I do like him as a character, and I think Jonathan Pryce plays it pretty well. On the other hand, I've never been much of a fan of Wei Lin. Her sort of martial art action stuff is well done. But yeah, her relationship with Bond never really gels for me. So yeah, not a huge fan. And for me, the biggest negative of the film is the climax on the stealth ship. I find it a bit too much machine gun and rockets for my taste. I prefer a bit more of sneaky Bond, something a bit more interesting and exciting, suspenseful. But overall, it's a film that I do enjoy rewatching. Probably rank it either second or third in the Pierce Brosnan. We'll have to see my thoughts when we get to The Was Not Enough.
I've always liked Tomorrow Never Dies. It's tonally the most satisfying Bond film that Pierce Brosnan did, in my opinion. It has a confident, albeit underdeveloped script, Brosnan's best performance as Bond, a great mix of practical models and CG, an ace score, which is a massive benefit, and the line, "Keep your shirt on," which is one of the most overlooked one-liners in the entire series. However, leads aside, the casting director must have owned a time machine. For the background cast of the British warships, blink and you'll miss Gerard Butler and Julian Rhind-Tutt, who had each been in one of the Lara Croft films, Jason Watkins, who has recently played John Cleese's son in Hold the Sunset, Michael Byrne, who had played the evil Nazi Vogel in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Andrew Hawkins, the son of the legendary British actor Jack Hawkins, Adam Barker, son of the legendary British comedian Ronnie Barker, Pip Torrens, who is now the villainous Carey Warleggan in Poldark opposite Aidan Turner, and who also played Noel Coward in Ian Fleming Bondmaker, a biopic made for the BBC. Downton Abbey stars Hugh Bonneville and Brendan Coyle, but most astonishingly, the Minister of Defence in this film is played by the Right Honourable Julian Fellows, the writer and creator of Downton Abbey, Oscar winner for his script for Gosford Park, and who had himself already played Noel Coward opposite Charles Dance in the 1989 Ian Fleming TV biopic GoldenEye. I mean, you couldn't make this shit up.
Good morning, my golden retrievers. This is Darren calling from Southampton with my 90-second review for Tomorrow Never Dies. So going back to 1997, I was 23 years old, and it's unbelievable that this film's 22 years old now. And I don't want to repeat a lot of the things that I feel about the film or what Tom and Chris have said. I particularly enjoy the first half of the film, all the way up till the end of Hamburg. I really enjoy. When I think about Tomorrow Never Dies, I think the thing that I think of most of all is how important the music is in the film, and David Arnold certainly knocks it out the park. It feels like he was really inspired by the material. Anytime there's a great scene, you get a really great music cue as well. Even from the opening part with the gun barrel, it was a real clear signal of intent that he meant business. And if you think about White Knight, Company Car, Hamburg break in and out, Backseat Driver, all great scenes, all great cues, they're the bits that I love in the film. The issues that I've got with the film, there's just something about Terry Hatcher I don't find her likeable. I'm not rooting for her. Jonathan Pryce, I find him a little bit over the top, very hammy. I find the film over-violent. Certainly Brosnan looks the part, and I remember being happy with him at the time, but I think it really gives a glimpse when I look back now of the Bond that he was going to become, and it's not for me. Honourable mention to Dr. Kaufman. Bye!
This is David Zaritsky for the Bond Experience here for my Tomorrow Never Dies review, and I am focusing, this will be a shock, on Bond experiences and lifestyle. And we got to look at the pre-title sequence. Bond looked amazing. Green pants, that leather jacket from the costumer, he looked amazing. I think quite a bit better than GoldenEye. His hair looked better as well. The suits, the Brioni suits, were spot on. They seemed to fit him better, especially around the action scenes. That camel-colored coat was perfect, long for the day, but still fantastic. And even his ties, those Turnbull and Astor ties, just really kind of fit the bill. But his tuxedo, I mean, everybody talks about the tuxedo and him sitting there with the Smirnoff and the vodka glasses. That is the perfect sight and how Brosnan should always be put up. And then, of course, that Black Ops outfit even fit the bill. He was sneaky Bond, so to speak, so he had to wear that. And again, he pulls it off. He's like a model. We have to take a look at the Dunhill mark here. Dunhill lighter, that was that one in the very beginning, looked perfect. And then the Dunhill lighter, the cups. But rounding it out, we've got to take a look at, even though he's rather stocked, even though he's got an incredible motorcycle, that Omega Seamaster says it all. Oh my gosh, that watch, to me, it not only impacted me from Tomorrow Never Dies, I had to go out and buy it. So this has been David Drutsky for the Bond Experience, and we will see you all very soon.
Hi Tom and Chris, Mark Taggart here, leaving my first 90-second review. First off, born in 87, Brosnan was my Bond, and I still absolutely love him to this day and have a huge amount of affection for his era, or at least 3/4 of it. I think he looked fantastic and brought the perfect balance of suaveness and danger to the role. As for this particular film, it's a tale of two halves for me. Up until the moment the BMW plows through the Evershop window, I think this film was brilliant and a worthy successor to GoldenEye. Particular highlights for me include the pre-credit sequence, Bond's break into Carver's lab, and the car park chase, all of which must be noted are accompanied by incredible cues from David Arnold. Unfortunately, I don't think the film ever fully gets going again after we leave Hamburg. It's far from bad, just a bit disappointingly average by Bond standards, and I think the same could be said for the villains in Wei Lin. Jonathan Pryce is well cast and is clearly having fun with the role, but I agree it would have been good to have seen a bit more menace from him. Stamper and Wei Lin both lack personality. Overall, a solid Bond film, but every time I see the 750IL drive off that roof, I just feel that it ushers in a drop in quality in the Brosnan era. An era that up until that moment had been consistently brilliant, right from the moment Bond leapt off the dam at Archangel a film and a half prior. Quick piece of trivia before I go. Stamper was named after the father of a guy I went to uni with. He and his brother, the Stamper brothers, founded the company that made the GoldenEye N64 game.
Hi, Gavin Ludlow Thompson, Station W, Westminster, calling again in relation to Tomorrow Never Dies, but I think I've missed the boat this time due to a very, very busy Tuesday in our Parliament with the problems that we're having with Brexit. Anyway, I'll give it a try in the hope that you'll play it anyway. This film has, for me, the best overall pre-credit sequence of the entire series, even beating The Living Daylights. And frankly, the music cue, White Knight, is, I think, my overall favourite, again, of the entire series, with perhaps the exception of the opening of Goldfinger. I love the Dr. Kaufman character. And I thought the first 2/3 of the film was particularly good, though I agree with the last third. It does descend into a rather Rambo-esque ending. But there we are. It's only happened the once, so I think we can forgive them for that. It's one of those rare occasions where I think I may have a slightly better one-liner than the one used in the film. When Bond jumps out of the window of the Carver building, instead of that rather silly line about using the elevator, why didn't he just simply say, whilst he looks up at the spoilt banner, well, that's certainly...
For me, Tomorrow Never Dies feels undercooked. In the book, Some Kind of Hero, by Matthew Field and A.J. Chowdhury, the following extracts probably explain why. The story draft, dated 13th of March 96, came with a disclaimer on its title page. Please note, this is the final shooting script. That does not mean there will be no further changes. Au contraire, it means that this will be the last draft printed on white paper. Hereafter, changes will be issued on coloured paper. Just 3 weeks before the end of production, only 3 white pages remained. Bruce Feirstein said I was writing in a tent outside the stage, sending in pages as we were shooting, while Brosnan stood there asking, "What do I do now?" And the answer was, "Wait, we'll have the pages in a minute." Pierce Brosnan spoke to Barbara and Michael and said it was not appropriate. At this stage of filming, we should be in such a fragile state. It was a joke. There didn't seem to be any cohesion to the working day. There was little fires everywhere. Dame Judi Dench is also on record as saying how disappointed she was, and that it was very off-putting to learn the script, and at 9:45 at night, get a loud knock on the door delivering a brand new script. In fact, the only actor who was happy in the production, really, from what I can find, is Michelle Yeoh, who was on record as saying she found all the chaos rather normal, and that Hong Kong films are known for being very haphazard, scripts never ready, and things always changing. Considering everything that was going on behind the camera, it's quite incredible we got a film as good as we did. There are some great points to it, but imagine what it could have been had it been developed a little more.
Hey Tom and Chris, this is Sam with my thoughts on Tomorrow Never Dies. This is a middle-of-the-road Bond film. The two of you said a similar thing. Its reception has been quite mixed. In general, there are a lot of people who love it. There are a lot of people who are ambivalent towards it, but it never shows up as the worst in the series, really. It's very entertaining, of course. And for me, there are a few things that stand out. Supporting characters are good, but Elliot Carver is by far the best thing in the film. Jonathan Pryce does a great job. I think there was a lot of untapped potential, as you said, and that really applies to most things in the film. But there's something about this villain who shouldn't quite be there. He's a Moore-era villain, really. He's a Disney villain. He's a comic book villain. And when you're a kid and you're watching this kind of very 90s, almost down-to-earth Bond film, not the most memorable, but good fun. And then in the middle of that, there's this great villain. I think that's what makes it so great. And apart from that, what stands out for me is the aesthetic. I think it's got a very, you two said it's a very generic action film look, and that's fair. Could be a Die Hard, but I like the urban, metallic, industrial look, and I think it's the right thing for 90s Bond.
Hi guys, it's Henrik Jordan from Berlin. Well, your review of Tomorrow Never Dies, to my mind, is so perfect on the nose that there's actually nothing for me to add or disagree with. After the massive disappointment I experienced with GoldenEye, yes, I know that I'm in a considerable minority here, Tomorrow Never Dies finally made all the difference for the first half of the movie, that is. First, Brosnan finally looked cool as hell and his haircut was sharp as a knife. I finally and wholeheartedly was beginning to love the dude as Bond. I adored the pre-title sequence, and since TND was the first DVD I ever bought, I probably watched The Arms Bazaar about 50 times back in the day. And boy, did David Arnold's music make a difference. I loved it. As it was with GoldenEye, I got the soundtrack before the movie was released, and I was infinitely happy about Arnold's approach to the score. Shame, though, that they relegated Surrender to the end title only. One of my favorite Bond songs of all time. The MI6 stuff is great, the Hamburg sequences as well, and also that inventive car chase. And I friggin' adore Vincent Schiavelli as Dr. Kaufman. Carver and Stamper, not so much, but you guys already commented on the hectic filming schedule and all the possible scenes which fell by the wayside. I concur with your review to 100%, and I wish I could have thrown my name into the hat for the anniversary interviews, but I'll be unavailable for the interview weekend. Maybe next year. All the best from Berlin, guys. Bye.
Hi JBR, it's Benjamin here from Wellington, New Zealand. Well, Tomorrow Never Dies is the movie that came out when I was born, so December 1997. But I find it a little disappointing. There's no real Bond film I really hate, apart from Brosnan's last one. But I find this one just not as good as almost the other Bond movies. I do really enjoy it, and I really like the soundtrack. It's mentioned by David Arnold, and I think Brosnan looks really good in this movie, and he's really enjoying himself. And Elliot Carver's a very, very good villain. I really like him as well. I think the positives is just all the actors. Michelle Yeoh, Pierce Brosnan, the regulars, Judi Dench, Samantha Bond, all seem to be really enjoying themselves and really in tune with their characters. Apart from that, I do agree with your assessments that it just feels a bit rushed. The sets are a bit uninspired, and it feels kind of like Bond on a budget, so to speak, or like a 90s action movie trying to be Bond rather than James Bond itself. I do like it though, and I do put it on sometimes, and I do find enjoyment out of it, especially the pre-titles. Yeah. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.
Hi, it's Jay Sadowski calling from Massachusetts. in the United States with my 90-second review of Tomorrow Never Dies. I did like this movie. It's not my favorite Pierce, but it's not my least favorite Pierce one either. I really enjoyed the PTS. I like the part where M delivers the line after asked what Bond is doing, and she says, his job. I love that. I thought Pierce looked great throughout the movie. He looks like he was born to be James Bond. Like, imagine him as a little kid walking around and everyone would be telling him, you look like you should be the next James Bond. You'd be a great James Bond. Really looked good in the hotel scene. I don't know why he needed so many shot glasses. I thought one glass would be fine. But Terry Hatcher is beautiful. Personally, I don't really like when they choose Americans, only because it makes the film seem a little more American, a little less exotic for me. But she's beautiful no matter what. Elliot Carver was okay. Stamper was okay. I liked the part where Bond stabbed the guy and then used that body, Stamper shot him to make him think it was Bond. I thought that was pretty cool. It being dark, I could see how Stamper would fall for it. I don't know why he had a pistol with a silencer on in one hand and a machine gun in the other. That makes zero sense to me. But I do like when they use the silencer. Oh, that part didn't make any sense. Also, the inside of the ship did not seem to match up the outside of the ship. It looked like this huge cargo hold, and on the outside looks like a catamaran. But anyway, love the podcast. Keep up the great work. Love it. Thanks. Bye.
Hello, James Bond Radio. This is Hunter Jamison calling in with my 90-second review of Tomorrow Never Dies. I think this is a really fun Bond film. It's one of the Bond films I like to watch consistently. It's just tons of fun. And I think part of that's due to a really, really strong opening hour of the film. A great pre-title sequence, a great section in Hamburg, which I think is a great on location, and a terrific score by David Arnold, one of my favourite in the series. It's a bit of a shame the film loses momentum as we hit Saigon. It just falls into a lot of those action movie cliches, and learning of these pre-production issues, I can see why it's a really stressful. I imagine it's a really stressful time for the filmmakers, but it just could have been stronger. I don't really buy Bond and Wayland's relationship. It just them hooking up at the end. I just don't really buy. It's not as interesting as Bond and Natalia or Elektra. I think Elliot Carver is a really interesting Bond villain in that, 22 years on film, and I don't think the character's been hurt by that. I think you could have in Bond 25, you could have a very similar Elliot Carver type character, and it would be just as good. I think, it helps when you got Bond-like villains in real life, like Mark Zuckerberg and Donald Trump. And I think it's just really interesting how the character hasn't really been affected by that. Overall, maybe around half of my one rankings, and yeah, really enjoyed the film.
Hi Tom and Chris, this is Philip Latchford with my 90-second review of Tomorrow Never Dies. Well, I actually prefer this one to GoldenEye. I find the story much better. I like the sort of classic Bond tropes of the boat that's being attacked and the brink of World War III, like Spy Who Loved Me and You Only Live Twice. I think Pierce is fantastic in this. I do like his chemistry with Michelle Yeoh, unlike yourselves, but I'm not that impressed with Terry Hatcher in it. She just comes across as wrong in the role, and it would have been better if they'd maybe had a different actress in the role, like a previous Bond girl. I do like Elliot Carver. I think he's a very engaging villain. I like the fact he's very subtle in some of the way he operates. The Hamburg setting's fantastic. The car chase is brilliant, even though it's Brent Cross Shopping Centre. But I have to say the thing that I'm really impressed with is the soundtrack on this. I think if GoldenEye had had this soundtrack, it would have been a better film. But it really makes it really pushes the narrative. And it's just the classic Bond sound. It's just a shame it doesn't start with the music Surrender, because that is one of the greatest Bond themes around.
Hey guys, JBR Family, this is Brian calling from Tampa, Florida, with my 90-second review of Tomorrow Never Dies. A little caveat, Pierce. I do love all the Bonds, but if I would have to rank them, I would say Pierce is my least favorite. I know you guys hate ranking Bonds. It's like, how do you pick your favorite kid? They're all great. And depending on what kind of mood I'm in, sometimes in the mood for what's a Pierce, but how can you rank them compared to Roger or Sean? This movie is just okay. I mean, it's not offensively bad. It doesn't do anything really weird or dumb that is going to put itself out there, but that's the problem. That doesn't really put itself out there. It's just, it makes it an okay, solid movie. And that's all it is. It's not memorable. It's not unique. It's not special. It's just an okay 90s action movie. And if that's what you're in the mood for, you could do worse. But it's Bond. It should be special. It should be great. And this is just a little disappointing. Thanks for everything you do. Keep up the great work. Talk to you later.
Hello, this is Aaron Johnson from Sweden calling. First time caller, long time listener. Here's my Tomorrow Never Dies review. Love the pre-title scene. Reminds me a bit of Octopussy, which is great. Love the Q scene, also great and funny. And the soundtrack in its entirety is great as well. And that's about all the good stuff. The villain, Elliot Carver, weak and lame and boring. Same goes with Stamper and the Bond girls. The new gun, I'm not a fan of. And the title song, not a fan of either. And the BMW is maybe the ugliest car in the whole series. Looks like a family car somehow. And the motorcycle BMW is even worse. It's the ugliest vehicle in the whole series, in my opinion. And this torpedo drill thing, ridiculous. Actually, it's on my 23rd place on my Bond top list. Only beaten by Mr. Tom Sears' favorite movie. Anthony Hopkins, Monica Bellucci, and an army of scuba ninjas would obviously have improved this movie. Thanks a lot. Keep up the good work. Love your podcast. It's my favorite.
Hello, this is Jack from Station L in London, going with my review of Tomorrow Never Dies. I think Tomorrow Never Dies is kind of a victim of circumstance with the sort of developed plot that never was, so they had to cobble together what they could. It becomes very much a collage of Bond tropes at best, and offers nothing fundamentally that new to the series, and what it does offer is not that great, to be honest. Characterization isn't really there. Pierce Brosnan does look a bit better in the part. However, I'm really surprised they didn't cast Monica Bellucci, as you say, for Paris Carver, and instead got Terry Hatcher. Nothing on her, but I think that might be due to her popularity in the Lois and Clark series at the time. As I said, characterization is not there, particularly in Stamper and Carver. I'm glad this was not the return film GoldenEye was. Otherwise, we might not be getting films to this day. That's me.
Name's Bond. James Bond. Hi Tom and Chris, it's Mark Collins here from Gloucestershire. Here's my 90-second review of Tomorrow Never Dies. I loved this film upon release, as I felt it was grittier and had more of a classic era feel than GoldenEye did. On reflection, I'm a bit more lukewarm to it now. What I love, the pre-title sequence, David Arnold's White Knight, Elliot Carver, I think Jonathan Pryce has some great one-liners. Dr. Kaufman, perhaps the best 5-minute character piece in the entire series. Q, as always. The car park chase, and Brosnan. He's relishing the role at this point, confident to make it his own, and constantly delighted by his gadgets and situations he's in, but equally ruthless at the drop of a hat. My dislikes, the locations are all quite claustrophobic. Everything is shot so tightly, and I never feel like this is a large globe-trotting adventure. On the same note, Hamburg is really drab. Terry Hatcher has no believability, and I loved her in Lois and Clark. Michelle Yeoh, great action chops, but no sexual chemistry with Brosnan. I really think they needed to be brave and lose their romantic relationship, a la Quantum. And finally, Stamper, or generic Rent-A-Goon. So in summary, a solid 7.5 out of 10.
Good day, gentlemen. This is Matthew Ayers calling from Massachusetts in the US of A. And I thought it was fitting that my first listener review should be on the first Bond film I ever saw on the big screen, and the first one I ever owned on DVD. What can I say? Pierce Brosnan, the poster Bond, at the height of his powers and hairstyles. He truly brought Bond to a new generation and brought the franchise back from the brink. This movie delivers on all Bondian fronts. You get the lover Bond, nibbling in Oxford. You get the man versus the world action Bond, in one of my favorite pre-titles. You get a reinvented car chase, a little backseat driving. You get a great score with lots of Bond theme and memorable cues, not to mention 2 awesome theme songs. Finally, you get an eccentric villain in Elliot Carver that would seem all too at home in today's cable news world. And don't forget, he has a stealth boat. It is certainly one I watch over and over again for pure Bond fun. In closing, I would like to issue a challenge to Mr. Vargas. He does not drink, he does not smoke, he does not make love, or call into listener reviews. He better for world. Keep up the great work, gentlemen. Buddha bless!
Hey guys, Barney Metcalf here from Station A, Australia, and I haven't left a review for a while, so I thought this is as good a time as any, because I would honestly peg Tomorrow Never Dies as one of my very favourite Bond films. This may have something to do with the fact that it's one of the earliest I saw. I have very strong memories of the whole White Knight and Backseat Driver stuff. I think that's all brilliant. I think Tom is wrong. I think the motorcycle helicopter chase in Saigon is absolutely fantastic. I do think a little bit of the stuff before that. I think between the stuff in Hamburg and once they start the chase scene, I think some of that is a bit weak. Apart from the remote control seat car chase, even I think that's great. Yeah, that middle section is the weakest. I think all the stuff on the stealth ship is brilliant, although I do agree Pierce does get a bit Rambo with the dual machine guns. I think Wayland's a fantastic Bond girl. I think Elliot Carver's a fantastic Bond villain. Who could forget Dr. Kaufman, yeah? Stamper. No, sorry, forgive me for my bad impressions. But yeah, I love this film. I think it's brilliant. I'd peg it as a good 9 out of 10 Bond film. So yeah, catch you later, guys.
Hey guys, it's Jeremy from Annapolis, Maryland, calling in with my 90-second review of Tomorrow Never Dies. One of the worst, definite bottom 5 for me with Bond films. Just really a tired rehash of You Only Live Twice, Spy and Moonraker story. Nothing new. Pretty bland action. There was just, you could tell, only in a storyboard sequenced and just made into the film. Nothing really standing out too much. Bond girls, unfortunately, were also pretty boring and bland. You know, Wei Lin with just the martial arts, but that's about it. Ooh, missed opportunity with Terry Hatcher. She definitely should have been the Pam Bouvier character from License to Kill. That definitely would have made it more interesting. But the only good Bond girl I thought was the tall, leggy blonde hostess from Carver's Party. So those legs just go on forever. Certainly good points for the Dr. Kaufman scene and the remote control car chase with the BMW. Definitely the highlight of the film, but I definitely thought it would have been better if the producers had decided to let Pierce drive the Silver Saab from the Gardner novels. I think the fans would have thought that pretty interesting. And unfortunately, it does not get much better with the next Brosnan film. Oh boy.
Hello, this is James, Station C, China. Brosnan's films never reached the heights or promise offered by GoldenEye, which is one of my favourite Bond films. Mainly this is due to the weaker and slacker plots and general dialogue. This is also true for this film, which, as you said, is a solid and entertaining enough film, but doesn't have enough Bond magic to put it in the category from good to excellent. I'm sure the behind-the-scenes issues and the rush job didn't help this movie. Brosnan's Bond looks great, his hair is shorter, and he's bulked up a little bit more, although I don't like the blue casual fit shirt he wears for the motorbike scene. Very 90s and dated. Wei Lin and Mrs. Carver are a little meh, as Bond girls would like to have seen more of the Danish lesson. For me, particularly modernised, the UK sending the fleet to China would achieve what? Invasion? Against 1.5 billion people? A bit weak plot there. All in all, not a bad movie, but Brosnan did and should have done better. Whilst I love Skyfall and Casino, Brosnan always looks the suave part more than Daniel. From China with love, keep up the good work. Thank you very much.
Hello guys, this is Ollie from Oxford, and here is my 90-second review of Tomorrow Never Dies. This was the latest Bond movie out when I first became a Bond fan, and I didn't think it was that great. Compared to all the classic Bonds up to that point, there was something missing and something forced. Looking at it now, it's apparent that it's very much of a rush job to capitalize on the success of GoldenEye, the previous film, and as such comes across as a tick-box exercise of Bond tropes with nothing much in the way of originality being presented, bar an update to 90s fashions and technology. I agree that it's an easy watch, doesn't tax the viewer, but both Roger and Sean had a few of these style films and they are done much more successfully and enjoyably. Pierce does look his best and, as always, puts his all into his performance. Jonathan Pryce is also great with what he's given, and Vincent Schiavelli as Dr. Kaufman is very memorable. The soundtrack reeks of the 90s, but has grown on me over time. That's it for my 90-second review. Keep up the good work, and I can't wait for Bond 25. See you guys. Bye!
December 12th, 1997. I was 13 and a half and I'd been obsessed with Bond for a little over a year, having watched GoldenEye dozens of times and gradually purchasing the previous adventures on Saturday mornings through Woolies 2 VHS for £10 offer. I'd already completed GoldenEye on the N64 too and was making a habit of inviting friends over for death matches. On that evening, I settled into my seat for what would be my first cinematic Bond. I'd be back 2 more times before the room was over, and as soon as I was able to rent and pirate the VHS tape of Tomorrow Never Dies, it would quickly catch up to GoldenEye as my most seen Bond. See, Pierce was Bond to me. I'd been obsessed since that first bungee jump, and Tomorrow Never Dies was just as good as GoldenEye, maybe even better. This had everything. Over-the-top action, beautiful women, a ridiculous jingoistic plot that pretended Britain would be a plausible foe to China, and a villain that seemed, to teenage me, fairly plausible. He could control everything with his bricks-and-mortar media empire and his GPS. No internet connection required for Mr. Carver. Dr. Kaufman, Stamper, a Seadrill, the highest death count of any Bond, a remote-control car, and a cunning linguist brushing up on a little Danish. Everything a young boy needs in his formative years. This has been the review from Richard Fish. They'll podcast anything these days.
Hey, Tom and Chris, this is Shamir Ravche calling from Station C, Canada, with the listener review for Tomorrow Never Dies. Well, it was one of my least favorite Bond movies, and I'll start off with the good. I certainly did like the soundtrack, especially Backseat Driver and the banter between Jeffrey Palmer and Judi Dench. Now for the bad, I didn't like Wei Lin, and she ranks up there with Mary Goodnight as one of the worst Bond girls in the series. And Dr. Kaufman was kind of a disappointment for me. Instead of being Scaramanga 2.0, he was like Inspector Clouseau, and Stamper really didn't do it for me in terms of henchmen. And it's just one of the those kinds of movies where it is easy to get distracted over. Anyways, that's my 2 cents about the movie. And always enjoy listening to the podcast. Keep up the good work. Thanks. Bye.
Hi guys, this is William calling in from Edinburgh in Scotland, just leaving my 90-second Tomorrow Never Dies review. I think this film, despite its flaws, which there are actually quite a few of, namely some weak character development and some silly little plot inconsistencies, this film is actually a very entertaining watch. It's one that I just plonk on when I need some fun escapism without really wanting to indulge my full attention into. It's perfect to watch with friends. It's funny, it's entertaining, it's suspenseful. It's got in some way or another everything that you would want in a Bond film. I think Brosnan is fantastic. I think he looks great. And I just find this one fun to watch. It's not the best one of all time by any means, but I'm certainly glad that it exists. I think the highlight of this film is definitely the car chase sequence in the multi-story car park. That's definitely a memorable scene and stands the test of time against a lot of the great Bond car chases quite well. This is a good film. Cheers.
Good morning, my golden retrievers. This is Don Zuiderman from the Netherlands with a tiny review of Tomorrow Never Dies. And to put it bluntly, this is my least favourite of the Brosnans. That's kinda harsh, I know, but I never really cared for it. Most of the film is just too generic and bland for me. Bond shouldn't be a balls-out action hero. And I agree with Tom and Chris's assessment that it just needed about 6 more months developing, and then it might have been up to par with GoldenEye. I love bits of it, like Brosnan's portrayal, the Q scene, Dr. Kaufman. The music score is simply delicious. But to me, the whole film, it's just less than the sum of its parts, and that's a real shame. I think they forgot the first rule of mass media. Either that, or it falls within Gupta's law of creative anomalies. Either way, Final Judgment is definitely one of the lesser Bonds for me. Oh well, can't win them all.
Hello, JBR family. This is Dennis James Harden calling from upstate New York to talk a little bit about Tomorrow Never Dies, 90-second review. Yeah, I saw it 5 times in the cinema. The first time I actually was disappointed. I felt like maybe my least favorite film might have competition in that regard. But then I saw it the next night with a James Bond themed party. I was decked out in my dinner jacket, and as was a few other people. And we really had a blast. I think what I didn't care for was the ending with Stamper. The fight with Stamper, I felt like the dialogue wasn't really necessary. It seemed more like something you'd see in a Die Hard movie or a Terminator type style film. But it's actually grown on me. David Arnold's music really elevates it to a whole new level. And whenever I'm in the mood for a Pierce movie, that tends to be the one I pop in. Anyway, looking forward to some hearing everyone else's thoughts on Tomorrow Never Dies. I like Tomorrow Never Lies title a little better. Anyway, take care, guys.
What's up, JBR? This is Spencer from Station USA calling to leave my review for Tomorrow Never Dies. I've always loved this movie. It was the first Bond movie I ever saw in the theater. It might have been my first Bond movie, period, but I kind of remember seeing You Only Live Twice on TV before this. I think it's just a fun late 90s action movie, and while still being a Bond movie. I think Michelle Yeoh is great as Wei Lin, his equal in the Chinese External Security Force. And I think that while Elliot Carver is a ridiculous film with a ridiculous plan, Jonathan Pryce does a fine job portraying him and grounding it in some sort of reality. I think Vincent Schiavelli is great as Dr. Kaufman, the German hitman. And yeah, overall, I've always loved this movie. It's got such a rewatchable quality to it, and I always will. And hopefully you guys agree with that. You do have some great points about it being a Rambo movie at the end, but still, I think it's a fun movie. And I think it's definitely worth revisiting if, for people who haven't watched it in a while. Okay, guys. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Hi there. This is Jeff Glave from Vancouver in Station C, Canada with my Tomorrow Never Dies review. What can I say? I love this movie. It's tied with Die Another Day as my favorite Brosnan, with his other two a distant second. It was such a breath of fresh air after the disappointment that was GoldenEye. As you boys would say, the title sequence is absolutely banging, and it only gets better from there. It's great to have the Bond theme back everywhere, especially when he's driving his JB5. And the villain? Carver is fantastic with his dips into insanity, and the Bond girls are also great. In 97, we were loving Hatcher as Lois Lane on TV, so seeing her as a Bond girl was icing on the cake, and Wayland's action scenes are top-notch. For me, it's also all wrapped up in the nostalgic period where we were getting a Bond movie every 2 years, just like the good old days. All in all, a solid entry in the series, and a big thumbs up for me. Keep up the good work, guys. Die Another Day's coming soon.
It's never a good sign when your director is the director of Stop or My Mum Will Shoot, the most festering of turkeys in Stallone's less than stellar career. Spottiswoode manages the unfeasible or unfathomable task of using Sam Lowry to play a hammy villain, a caricature when he's got one of the greatest character actors of his generation. And yet Pierce Brosnan is very, very good. Suave, debonair, chic, even giving moments of forlorn introspection when he guns down the doctor who was rid him of a woman he may once have loved. Pierce Brosnan's Bond was nothing more than a hybrid of silly fodder, nowhere near the caliber of stage brilliance that Timothy Dalton brought, but as fathers go, this might be his strongest portrayal. Safe from the complexities, GoldenEye and The World Is Not Enough went beyond him. Here, when in his sleek, chic way, he manages to be cool.
Hi guys, Jamie Mitchell in Sweden here, sending my 90-second review for Tomorrow Never Dies. I understand there are flaws with this film, but this is one of those Bond films where I can see beyond the flaws and just really enjoy the movie. Being a massive Brosnan fan, I really like this movie. It is one I watch quite often. Pierce Brosnan is on full force and owns the role of Bond. I love seeing Bond having a touch of downtime with the Danish lecturer. I wish we could get more Bond on his downtime. Elliot Carver is rather pathetic, but with world leaders and business leaders of today, he feels more relevant than he did when the film was first released. I love the film. I love the scene with Dr. Kaufman. It is really up there for me. I also really enjoyed the whiskey drinking brief/drive to the airport with M, and the scenes with Q and Wade. This is one of those Bond films which I just love, warts and all. Thanks, guys. Keep up the great work.
Hello, James Bond Radio. This is Paul Collis, long-time listener, first-time caller, with my Tomorrow Never Dies review. This 1997 Bond film comes out at number 20 on my list of the 24 official Bond films. Like the BMW and Brosnan's second outing, the tone of Bond 18 often lurches around a bit, perhaps because of its many writers. I count 15. The Wei-Lin chase is excellent, but Jonathan Pryce gives the greatest kung fu display in the film. And alas, the fools cast Terry Hatcher instead of Monica Bellucci as Paris. Love the show, gentlemen. Keep it up.
Hey, James Bond Radio. This is Marty calling about the 90-second review for Tomorrow Never Dies. My opinion, when I remember seeing that and even reading the book way back in the day, it was just all right. It's a good movie, but it's definitely in the bottom tier of the top 24 James Bond movies. It's definitely one of the worst out of Brosnan's, but I'd say they're all pretty bad except for GoldenEye. I went through the whole collection last year, all 24 movies, and it is definitely, the series is kind of fading around that point. I don't know what was wrong. I think the story and the villain and the characters were just kind of lacking. The action's pretty good, but even that kind of comes and goes. Like the helicopter scene is so cheesy and over the top. But Brosnan still kills it. Thanks, guys. Have a good one. Bye.
Stamper! Stop yelling your 90-second review in my ear, yeah?
Tomorrow Never Dies is very good film.
Hi all, this is Fraser Lockley from Leicester. Here is my 90-second review for Tomorrow Never Dies. This is my favourite Pierce Brosnan film. Absolutely love this one. I think they just get the mixture right in this. The score from David Arnold carries it through really well, and obviously is a vast improvement over the previous one. They just get the mixture right. The end scenes are spot on, the pre-title. I love the title. Little bit sad they didn't use Surrender over the main title sequence, because obviously it's referenced throughout the film, but at least we get it at the end. A few scenes for me a little bit implausible. The helicopter down the alleyways is the worst of all. Possibly also the cutting of the chain in the car park sequence, but to be fair, you can forgive them for it. I think the rest of that scene's absolutely spot on. There's a confidence about Pierce Brosnan in this film that I think helps carry the whole thing through. That's it. Keep up the good work, guys, and
All right, there we go. So I think the prediction there that we said, a bit of a mixed bag. I think it's a pretty safe bet, really. I think there was a lot of different opinions there, and it's a divider, isn't it? I don't think anybody is really thinking that Tomorrow Never Dies is up there with Goldfinger or Majesties and Casino and all those movies. I think really for most people, it's a middle of the field kind of Bond film. You know what I mean? Yeah. Maybe a bit higher for some, maybe a bit lower for others, but when you average it out, I feel like it's a mid-table Bond film.
Yeah, but I mean, there's quite a few elements which are really good. Obviously, the soundtrack was mentioned, wasn't it, with David Arnold, and that is, I think it is my favourite David Arnold soundtrack.
Yeah,
actually.
mine too.
It's so good.
Mine too.
And so that's obviously good, and like the MI6 we mentioned a few times, and that was obviously brilliant. But I guess a few people echoed our thoughts in terms of some of the characters like Carver and Stamper, and obviously Kaufman. Some people liked him, and some people didn't. But I think overall, pretty similar to what we thought, but it's great. I think it's a sort of film where I think like everyone would happily watch it, but it's not sort of right up there for most people.
Yeah. I think if you were to do your greatest hits package, if you were to do the box set of like the top. It's impossible. The top 5 Bond
you
films.
Can't, can you? Yeah,
it's like it's not.
It's
not going to be in that box set. It's not. No. It's not up there with. I mean, off the top of my head, Casino's in the box set. Goldfinger's in the box set. Majesty's is in the box set. And then, that gets difficult because I want to put a lot of other ones in the box set as well. Yeah. But I suppose that if you did the box set of the best 3, it's probably those 3, isn't it?
Yeah. I think. Give or take 1 or 2. But yeah.
All right.
Cool. There we are.
Give or take 1 or 2 in the box set of 3. So what's left over?
Actually, give or take 1, I should say. Give or take 1. Yeah,
right.
yeah. I think the other 2 would definitely be in there.
All right.
Sweet. Okay, yeah, so that's good. So that is really Tomorrow Never Dies put to bed now, isn't it? So, obviously, are we going to give a little hint as to what's next week, or get people guessing?
Next week will be the birthday episode.
Oh, it will indeed, yes. So, obviously, we've got the interviews that are lined up for that. So, obviously, as normal, we'll be interviewing 6 people for the 5th anniversary Fancast episode, which really looking forward to that. And equally, after that, then we'll be doing the Musical Bond, or should I say John Williams will be doing the Musical Bond listener episode as well. So lots to look forward to. But before we get to that, should we answer the Bond trivia question?
Let's do it. Let's have a little reminder from good old Chris Thorne what his question of the day was. Here it is.
So my question is this. In the interrogation room sequence where Dr. Hall is quizzing Bond on the word association game, to what does Bond answer to the following words? Sunlight and moon.
All right. Sunlight and moon.
Is it moonlight? Is it sunlight and moonlight or sunlight and moon?
So if sunlight and moon was the question.
Is it?
Yeah.
I think I remember. Okay, yeah, maybe I'm wrong.
So go on. Have you got any idea?
I think dance is one of them because I remember he says dance, and I don't think he says dance for any of the others. So I think it's moonlight dance, sunlight dance, moon dance, sunlight dance. I think it's sunlight
Moon Dance is like an old jazzy tune by Van Morrison, so maybe he would say that. Yeah, it's a marvelous night for a moon dance. That one.
Moon dance, moonlight, sunlight dance. I think it's sunlight dance, but then moonlight dance. I don't know. I think dance is the answer to one of them.
All right.
But moon's throwing me a bit. Moonshine.
Moonshine. I guess. I mean, what else?
Or Mooney,
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's turn it over to Chris then and find out the other Chris and find out what the answer is.
The answer is Bond answers to sunlight the word swim, and when Dr. Hall says moon, Bond replies with dance. Thanks very much, guys. Love the podcast. Keep it up, and I'll catch you later. Take it easy. All the best, guys.
Cool.
Nice. You got a half point for that, Chris. Well done.
Yeah. Got the dance. I couldn't remember the swim, but good question though. It's one of those things with Skyfall. Like you, I haven't seen it for quite a while, but it gets tricky. But you know what? The next film we're going to be reviewing, I have not seen that for donkeys now, and I'm actually really looking forward to The World Is Not Enough because I don't know. I don't think I've seen it since we started the podcast.
Good Lord.
Maybe once. But a long time ago, mate. A long time ago. So that's going to be an interesting one.
Is that a reflection on how much you enjoy that film or not?
Potentially, but equally, I've wanted to try and because the Daniels, I've watched in various things, and we've had a few cinema trips to see certain things, and I did an anniversary watch with Rory a couple of years ago, and we watched a few of them, including Die Another Day. but I just haven't seen World Is Not Enough for a long time. So that's going to be an interesting one. It's going to be an interesting when we get round to it.
I'm excited to spend some time with Electra King again. Goodness gracious me, Chris.
Yes.
Good Lord.
Not Denise Richards then. Or
I mean,
Christmas Jones.
I wouldn't.
You know, she's up for a threesome, isn't she, old Denise Richards?
She certainly is. She played a key role in a lot of young boys' lives with that particular film, Wild Things, of course. Everybody loves a bit of Wild Things, don't
old
they?
Neve Campbell as well.
Yeah, indeed. Those were the days, weren't they? Eh? Good old, what was his name? The dude. Matt something, wasn't it?
Matt, what's his name? Damon. No, not Matt Damon. What am I talking about?
Matt Damon.
He's brilliant as well. What is his name? That's so annoying.
He's got a
Matt
brother.
Dillon.
Matt Dillon.
Yeah, he's
lucky
brilliant,
bastard.
isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
There we go.
All right, nice. That was a little bit of a segue there. All right, cool. Next up then, Chris, it's time for the Guess the Quote round.
Bond, James Bond.
That's right. Now, it was my quote last week, if you remember, Chris.
It was.
And so I'm obviously going to perform it for you again. Are you ready?
I am, but I remembered it was a bit of a tricky one. But yeah, let's have a listen.
I hope you can trust these men. I'll do it for you one more time.
God. Yeah, go for it.
I hope you can trust these men.
Is it The World Is Not Enough?
No. So now I know that will be a good one to do my next quote with, because if you haven't seen it for a while, I can get you with that one. Yeah.
Wait, can you say it one more time? Sorry.
I hope you can trust these men.
Is it a woman saying it?
No. My performance must be way off.
I hope you can trust these men. It's not For Your Eyes Only?
Nope.
No.
More recent.
Is it a Craig? Yeah, it's got to be a Craig.
It is a Craig.
Right, I hope you can trust these men. Is it Quantum?
It is Quantum.
Right, I hope you can trust these men. Is it to Camille?
No.
No. Oh, man, I hope you can trust these men. Paul Jameson would be turning in his grave right now. I think you could trust these men. No, any hints, any clues or anything? Trust these men. Is it... Oh, I hope you can trust these men. Is it Dominic Green or General Madrano or anything like that? No. No, I'm way off. Good. Just hit me with it. Go on.
So it is when Bond goes back to the hotel room and M's waiting for him in there, and she's surrounded by MI6, and he walks in and goes,
yes.
So that's what she meant, because he's got the note, obviously, with Run. So that's what she meant. And then he goes, I hope you can trust these men. And then there it is. Yeah.
Oh, nicely done. Yeah. See, he's got me.
I did get you. I'm proud of myself. It's the first time in ages.
I haven't seen that one for a while.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a new quote for you this week.
Lovely.
Are you ready?
I am.
Here it is. Hey, mate, watch it.
Oh my goodness! I'm gonna have to watch all the films now to try and work out what that one is. That's a good one. Excellent performance. Can I have it one more time just to make sure?
Yeah. I'll do it once more. Hey, mate, watch it.
It's good. Excellent stuff. That's a character you've played in recent years as well.
It may possibly have been. Yeah. Okay.
Right. Nicely done. So we had a listener quote from good old Chris Hayes last week, didn't we? So should we have a little reminder of what that one was? Here we go.
Who the hell are you?
Who the hell are you? Now, this is a tricky one, because we said last time, didn't we?
Old,
Tilly, who are you? Tilly?
What's her name?
Jill.
No, not Tilly. Jill Masterson.
Jill Masterson.
Who the hell are you?
Who the hell are you? Now, is it?
I can hear it, but I just can't play it.
Is it? I'm thinking, is it Christmas? With the worst performance of James Bond in the whole series. Bond. James Bond.
Yeah, I think you might be right.
Is it that?
Who the hell are you? Bond. I think you might be right.
Because I feel like he's obviously not a Russian scientist, so it's like, who the hell are you?
Yeah, I think you're on the money there.
Do you?
I think that could be it.
All right.
I haven't got anything else that comes to mind. Who the hell are you? Bond. Yeah, I think that's it. I hope that's it. Yeah.
All right. Should we turn it over to Chris Hayes then and see if we... all right, here we go.
Let's do it.
Hi, JBR. It's Chris Hayes from Manchester with the answer to last week's Guess the Quote. It was from You Only Live Twice. where Bond has gained access to the volcano and finds the cell where the American astronauts are being kept. He calls through the bars of the door, "Good evening," to which one of the men say, "Who the hell are you?" And Bond then replies, "Stand back, I'm going to blow the lock." I hope you got it. Keep up the good work, guys.
It's
Nice.
as soon as he said "you only live twice," I knew exactly the scene, and I pictured that moment. I was like, that was a good one. That completely
There it is.
stumped me.
I suppose,
But
in hindsight, he didn't do the accent, did he? So it wouldn't have been Christmas Jones.
No,
and I do think she goes, "Who the
that's
hell
true.
are you?" You know, she has that kind of sassiness going
that's
on.
something she would have. That's something she would have said even if she didn't.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you should still get half a mark for that, Tom, because that sounds about right. But yeah,
Well, I got
man.
the completely
it's one of
the
those
wrong
things
film
where.
but still, I'll take it.
But it's the sort of thing where as soon as as soon as Chris said the film, straight away that scene was there. But yeah, brilliant stuff. Nice one.
Nice.
So we have a new JBR listener quote. Okay. And the one this week is from Mr. Jim Key.
Let's have a listen to Mr. Jim Key.
Hey guys, Jim Key here again from the great state of New Jersey. I have a listener quote for you too. So I'm surprised no one's ever done this, I guess because of how impossible it is to get. I'm sure nobody will ever get it, but I'm still going to do it anyway. So here you go. Ready? Knick-knack, Tabasco! So there you go. I know it's super hard, but yeah, give it a try anyway.
Oh, what do you think about that one?
I don't know. I don't know anyone called Tabasco in Bond. Do you?
No, that does sound like a henchman, though, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Tabasco,
yeah.
take him away.
It should be. It totally should be.
A
red-faced villain.
Do you know what? I think it was Mark O'Connell who said that he, as a kid, always misheard that line and thought Scaramanga was saying, "Knick-knack, the bath's cold."
The bath's cold.
You can kind of hear that as well, can't you?
Yeah.
So Knick-knack runs and just tops up the bath a little bit.
Similarly, there's a bit where he says to Scaramanga, "Monsieur, your steam bath's ready." It's like your steam bath is ready, and I always thought it was like just. It sounded like Sinbad or something. Sinbad is ready or something, but it's his steam bath is ready, and I never knew that until
you could be forgiven for mishearing Knick-knack, can't you? It's with an accent like that. All righty ho then. So it's time for.
Who wrote the score for Live and Let Die? Who played Helga Brandt? How did she die? Who wants to stockpile the water in Bolivia? It's Tommy Trivia.
That's right, it's time for Tommy Trivia. So this is where Chris breaks out the 007 Trivial Pursuit deck and quizzes me on the questions. What have you got for me this week? I got a clean slate last time, didn't I? So I'm excited to keep that going.
Okay, we're going to start with crew and behind the scenes. Can you please tell me who created the title sequence?
That would be Maurice Binder.
If bloody well was. That is impressive.
Yeah,
I didn't
I'm
even
good,
give you
man.
the film. Okay. Oh, wow. How apt is this? Casting characters. Which character does Terry Hatcher play?
That would be Paris Carver.
It certainly would. Wow. Okay, 2 out of 2. On to the films. What creatures are present in Blofeld's office on his yacht?
What creatures are present in Blofeld's office on his yacht?
On his yacht, yeah.
When does Blofeld have a yacht? Is it Never Say Never Again?
No, we're talking Eon only. Got to think early days, mate. Early days.
Blofeld's yacht. Oh, from Russia.
Yes. But what is the question?
Oh, the fighting fish. Siamese fish.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, there we go. Siamese fighting fish. Wicked. Okay, 3 out of 3. Halfway there. On to the vehicles. Let's start that again. The guards chase the moon buggy in what type of vehicles?
The guards chase the moon buggy on what kind of vehicles? Little trike things.
Yes. Do you know? I'm going to give you it anyway. Do you remember the brand of the little trikes? We saw them in Bond in Motion.
We did,
Have you been
didn't
to
we?
Bond in Motion? Yeah, we did.
Yeah,
With the
yeah,
big
yeah.
inflatable balloon tires. It begins with H, and they make motorbikes, which
Harley Davidson?
is Japanese style.
Honda.
And it's yes, like Honda. I was going to go for Street Fighter 2, but never mind. Yes, Yeah, exactly. Honda ATC 3-wheelers, they're called.
Nice.
Okay, 2 more to go. On to gadgets and weapons. Can you please tell me, what weapon does Goodnight use to dispatch Scaramanga's henchmen? So what weapon does Goodnight use
to dispatch Scaramanga's henchmen?
Yes. And it's not knick-knack.
So it's Kra, isn't it, they're referring to?
It is Kra, that's it, yeah. What does she use to dispatch Kra? And he basically falls into that.
Does she twats him on the head with something, doesn't she?
Yes. What is that thing?
Bollocks! What is that? No, I can't remember.
I'll give you a clue. It's a tool of sorts, as in a
spanner
tool. Oh, not quite.
What's
bigger than that? Like bigger than that?
A hammer?
Bigger than that? It's a wrench, Tommy. A wrench.
Oh, that's what I meant by a spanner. Isn't that the same thing? Is a spanner and a wrench the same thing?
Yeah, I guess it's kind of the same. I'll give you it anyway.
What's a wrench then if it's not a spanner?
A wrench is like the big old thing with the hook on the end, and you can tighten it and loosen it and stuff like that.
See, I would call that a spanner. But then maybe I'm a spanner for thinking that.
I was going to say I'd call you a spanner. No, it's all right. I'll give you that, definitely. Okay, so one last to go for a clean sweep, Tom says. Locations. In what country is l'Americain?
What country is... It would be Morocco.
Yes.
She knows
brilliant.
American.
Absolutely brilliant. Yes. Beautiful stuff. So there we go. Excellent.
Right. Good stuff. Now it's time for the final game of the day, Chris, which is, of course...
It's the music cue.
That's right, it's time for Guess the Music Cue, where Chris gives us a little snippet of a Bond score, and we have to guess what film it's from and what scene it's from as well. So, should we have a little reminder of last week's?
Let's play it.
Now,
I love that bit of music. It's so good.
It's nice. I think it's a shame it wasn't called something else, because I feel like, not that this is it, but there's that bit of Bond theme in this particular film that I think is Timothy's version of Bond 77. That's his little updated Bond theme for the new generation, you know? Bond 77 comes along, Bee Gees Bond, disco. This is like 80s kind of, electronic-y Bond, it's obviously the Living Daylights, but that bit where he jumps on top of the jeep in the pre-title sequence, and you get bum bum bim bim bum bum bim bum 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 bim bum 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 bum. That to me is like if you went full Bond theme with it, that to me is Timmy's signature Bond theme. So that is from the car chase, isn't it? Across the ice with the Aston Martin.
Absolutely.
Yeah. He's had a few optional extras installed.
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Spot on, mate. Spot on. And
nice.
what a piece of music that is. It's probably like the exercise at Gibraltar at the pre-titles is absolutely amazing.
Oh, yeah.
And this whole ice chase, I think it's called, it just sounds so good. The synthesizer and the Bond theme weaved in. It's just a really, really top-notch bit of music. That.
It is a beauty, isn't it?
Love it.
All right. Have you got a new one for me this week?
Okay. I do, and I think again this one you will get within half a second of listening to it, but it is a beauty. So let's have a listen.
Here we go. Oh, mate, that is a beauty. You're absolutely right. Yeah, that is a beauty of a beast of a tune. Yes. I think most people would be able to get that off the top of their heads.
Cool.
As opposed to what scene it's from, I have some rough ideas. It could be a couple, actually. But yeah, all right, nice. Nicely done. All right, cool. Well, that about wraps up our Tomorrow Never Dies coverage, doesn't it, Chris? Now the people have spoken.
It does indeed. Indeed. So between now and obviously the next one we've got is The World Is Not Enough. We'll obviously have a few of our other episodes running around. There might even be 1 or 2 interviews. You never know. Might fit a mailbag episode in there at some point. You never know. But obviously, we're halfway through the Brosnan at the moment. 2 down, 2 to go. So it'll be interesting to see what we think of the next one.
Absolutely. All right. Well, James Bond Radio will return next week with the 5th birthday extravaganza, where we get to speak to some JBR family. Until then, I've been Tom Sears.
I have been Chris Wright.
And we'll see you next week, everybody.
Bye.